Everything that has a beginning must and will have an end. And this happened yesterday with an interview in which Senator Bernie Sanders did with Politico. Now, until he finally gives that full-on office, it's very interesting to see this title. Bernie Sanders says next term is likely his last. Now, Bernie Sanders was reelected for another 6 terms in November, and he served about 40 years in politics, and especially in Congress. And he'll choose to retire at the end of his next term. So, is this it for Bernie Sanders? The adventure is finally over? Some would say, finally, at long last. Others would say, oh, wow, he was nothing more than a fraud. And then finally, there'll be more who will be begging, no, Bernie, please stay, please stay. I have differing opinions about Senator Bernie Sanders, but I think it's only fair that we at least cover this article here first because it's a sign of an ending of an era. So this is an article from Politico. I think it's only fair that we talk about it as, let's be clear, everyone in the viewing audience in some form or another, and everyone in independent media as well, in some form of another, was inspired, was involved in the Bernie Sanders campaign, covered the Bernie Sanders campaign, and so much more surrounding it. Were it not for him, especially in 2016, that election cycle would not have been the lightning rod that it was. Now, of course, there was Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, but let's talk about Bernie Sanders right now. Senator Bernie Sanders, former presidential candidate and leader of the progressive movement in the United States, debatable, for decades, said his term starting in January would likely be his last term in an interview with Politico. So, starting January, that's it for Bernie, the nutless wonder Bernie Sanders. Senator Bernie Sanders won re-election in November and has 6 more years in the Senate ahead of him. When I asked him whether his 4th term would be his last, Sanders said, I'm 83, I'll be 89 when I get out of here. You can do the figuring, I don't know, but I would assume probably yes. I would say, yeah, time to ride off in the sunset, Bernie. You're 89 years old, and look, this isn't being ageist, but my goodness, why is the United States Senate and House nothing more than a glorified retirement home in which our politicians are implementing neoliberal policies, making our lives miserable, yet they get gold-plated health care? Some of them are your good friend, Bernie, your pals. Sanders has been in Congress since 1991. He served 8 House terms before winning election to the Senate in 2006. And though he has long touted his independence from party affiliation, he was a leading contender for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2016 and 2020. He was a runner-up both times. Correction, Politico, there was election fraud that took place during the 2016 and 2020 Democratic primaries in which Bernie Sanders was denied the nomination thanks to the DNC establishment, favoring establishment candidate picks, Hillary Clinton in 2016 and Joe Biden in 2020. And corporate media was there to cheer it on all the way. Sanders helped move the Democratic caucus in the Senate to the left, debatable, but comes to this time in his political career with concerns about the future of the progressive ideals in American politics. After Donald Trump's victory in the last month's presidential election, Sanders called out Democrats for abandoning working class people. And Bernie, you bent over and spread your cheeks and took it up the wazoo as you let the Democratic establishment continue to run around and hijack the progressive ideals. So, folks, let's go ahead and have democracy in the chat. I think it's only fair that we do bring it up. I mean, how do you feel about this being Bernie Sanders' last term? Are you emotionally attached to it? Do you have any feelings towards it? Are you concerned about it? What are your feelings? Type 1 for I can't believe he's retiring. We need him. We need him. He's our champion. Type 2, good riddance. All right. Or type 3, I'm mixed. I don't know how to feel about him. There's good and bad. I wonder which number will prevail. Go ahead. See, I'm giving you guys 3 choices. See, I could have democracy in the chat. At least it's more fair and more balanced than we saw in the Democratic primaries of 2016, 2020, and 2024. Oof. Is that me hurting today? Is that me being too real? Yes. He reiterated that the assessment today, the average American is hurting. He said, you've got to recognize the reality of what's going on, and I'm not sure that enough Democrats are doing that. Well, the Democrats will never understand that because your good friend Bernie, not your good friend Bernie, your good friend Biden, Bernie, your good friend Biden it up. Didn't do anything to implement any policies, and yet still sold out. So there you go. Sanders added that many Americans appreciate the Biden administration has done to lower drug prices and improve infrastructure. Okay. So bridges and airplanes and trains, screwing up, falling apart, that's not a thing. Hey, folks, lower drug prices in America. You benefiting from that? Regale me with your tale. But he continues to rail against currents in the party that he says are out of touch with the working class Americans. So there you go. Yeah, not even everyone in the Congress Progressive Caucus fully understands the vision needed for the future of the party, according to Sanders. Some do and some don't. Oh, I wonder who he's calling out. But Sanders said he takes heart that the Progressive Caucus, which Sanders first formed with 5 of its members in 1991, has grown more than 100. Dozens of them are really strong progressives who share my perspectives, he said. Sanders said President Joe Biden, who emerged as the party's centrist wing to win in 2020, has shown how progressive ideas can be central to the Democratic Party, pointing to Biden's work to lower drug and child care costs. When did this happen? Anybody know? Did anybody get this memo? Did anybody get this memo? I mean, Biden is improving progressive ideas. Does anybody? Hello? Avon calling. Anybody? Seriously, a bird goes tweet and an owl goes what? Okay, continue on. Sanders will lose his chair at the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee in January, but he says he hopes to return to the post if Democrats can retake control of the Senate. Moron. He said his legacy leading the committee includes expanding funding to the primary care system and holding leaders of pharmaceutical companies to account for charging higher prices in the U.S. compared to other countries. We're the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all of its people, and we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, he said. My vision is pretty clear as to where we have to go. Well, Bernie, here's where you can go. You can go. Boom! I know. Is that being mean? I'm going to tell you why. Look, I'm pretty sure all of you have your fair share of stories, fair share of situations in which you maybe you donated to the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016 or 2020. I know a lot of us feel like we were let for a ride. I mean, look, it's one thing to give my perspective, but hey, I thought he was the real deal. Little did I know that he didn't really give a damn about what was happening during both those primaries. I mean, if he really cared, he would have fought. I will never forget the 2016 Democratic primary in which, or not primary, but at the convention, in Philadelphia, myself and my colleague, Daniel Upker, we were there. We covered it. You want to know what we saw over there at the DNC convention? And, I've said this story before, but I think it's very apropos to say it now. We heard stories from volunteers and delegates and supporters who were harassed, bullied, assaulted, stalked, doxxed by Clinton people or Democrat operatives. I mean, all their stories were the same. All of them were the same. And what did we see in 2016? Very similar in 2020 as well. Polling stations being shut down, lack of paper ballots, people being kicked off the roster. And of course, all the constant attacks that Bernie Sanders was getting, but also towards his supporters. I mean, my goodness. During both times in 2016 and 2020, if you were a Bernie Sanders supporter, you were labeled a straight white male. That's at least according to corporate media. Remember? They did that. Unless I'm going crazy and I'm just imagining it. But I'm pretty sure all of you remember it. I'm pretty sure all of you have recollections. I'm pretty sure all of you can recall. So if you're Black, Latino, Asian, Arab, Muslim, Jewish, woman, doesn't matter. Congratulations. If you were a Bernie Sanders supporter, you became a straight white male. You broke that glass ceiling. Well done. Bernie Sanders' last term. And there's a lot to say about it. I'll be clear here. He did inspire me and Daniel to create Hard Lens Media. He inspired a lot of people to get involved in politics and in journalism and in media and in commentary. He did. But I think he lacked the heart of follow through. It's abundantly clear what was happening during 2016 and 2020. That's going to be his legacy when he could have fought. I mean, even Donald Trump called it out to some degree on how the Democratic establishment was screwing over Bernie Sanders. I thought he'd be ready in 2020. That's my mistake. That's my L I have to carry. But it's a lesson to be learned. Don't put stock and faith into politicians. And hey, Trump supporters, hey, go ahead, be happy with your win with Donald Trump. But the thing is, do not invest all your capital and energy in these politicians. They're not the knights on the hill. And Bernie Sanders is a prime example of that. Talk the big game, had nothing to deliver. But see, now the thing is, especially with the incident that took place with the failure of the Democrats, especially on November 5th with Donald Trump being reelected, but also the aspect of the fact that now people are talking about healthcare again because of what happened to United Healthcare CEO. Turns out Bernie Sanders' ideas might outlive him, and people are seeing that there was some truth behind it. If only he had the lion's heart to stand up. I want to play this video from Hotspot where you have Fox News, of all places, defending Bernie. I know. Bear with me, please. I beg of you. It's just rather funny. Oh, a correction. This is Case Study QB. Shout out to Case Study QB. Let's play this video.
What about an economy in which we join the rest of the industrialized world, guarantee health care to all people as a human right, and where we don't pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs? Those are the issues.
Liz, there's a reason why he's so popular with independents. He sees it accurately. And by the way, the deep state tries to kill him, right? I mean, quote unquote, kill him. I mean, they wouldn't allow him to be the candidate. They wanted Hillary back in 2016, and then they did it to him again with Biden when they select.
Of all the news outlets, 2024 has been an interesting year, and shout out to everyone that's been supporting Hardlands Media, especially during this year, the year of the dragon. Come on, I better see some emoji dragons in the chat, but I mean, come on. All lies will be exposed because even Fox News, because here's the thing that I found funny. I kind of made this joke, and I wish I had the budget to really make a skit like this, but I'll never forget during the 2016 Democratic Convention. I think it was on the second day or third day. Myself and Daniel, with a shoestring budget, we go to Philadelphia. We cover it. And I remember one incident in particular where we're eating lunch, and I'm looking at my phone, and I see not one, but 16 negative articles about Bernie Sanders in one day. Not from Fox News. Not from any conservative media outlet. But from the Washington Post. I mean, if you were a conservative commentator during 2016, you might have called Bernie Sanders a communist or a socialist or an evil boogeyman. I mean, corporate media was beating you to the ground. I mean, Washington Post, one day, 16 negative articles about Bernie. The madness. And Fox News, of all places, saying, hey, yeah, Bernie Sanders, he's kind of screwed out in the primary. 2016 and 2020, and like a good little cuck supported Biden in 2024. Was that on your bingo card? Hey, listen, quote the great prophet, Cat Williams.
All lies will be exposed.
All lies shall and will be exposed. Let's rewind this.
And by the way, the deep state tries to kill him, right? I mean, quote unquote, kill him. I mean, they wouldn't allow him to be the candidate. They wanted Hillary back in 2016, and then they did it to him again with Biden when they selected Kamala.
But you know what? Sanders is who he is. You may not agree with him, Maria, but he is authentic. He has stood for the same ideas, the same values all the time. And I have to say that has worked for him. And shame on the Democratic Party for basically not allowing him to have a seat at the table. And they paid a pretty heavy price for that. He could have been a candidate instead of Hillary. He could have been a candidate another time, but they wouldn't have it. And look where they are now.
That's exactly right. And that's why I respect him greatly.
Yeah.
Of all places. When you woke up this morning to watch Hardlands Media Live at 9 a.m. Central, as you should all the time, every time, did you expect to see a segment like that from Fox News? Did you expect to see something that earth-shattering? So I think we need to remember, all in all, yes, it is okay for us to view Bernie Sanders differently. I mean, for me, look, I'm very angry at his overall failure of follow-through. His legacy is going to be mixed to me, but I cannot deny the fact that, yes, he did inspire me and Daniel and a lot of people to be involved in politics. I'm pretty sure all of you too. But the thing is, it's not about Bernie Sanders. It's not about overall what we will do without him. It's what we do going forward. That's the issue. Now, if this truly is his last term, let's be clear, he's going to be 89 at the end of his term. I think it's time to ride off into the sunset. It's the best thing. It's for the best. And this is where we have to step up as leaders in our own right, for our own communities. We cannot rely on electoral politics to save the day. We cannot allow ourselves to be manipulated by any politician, be it Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Libertarian, Independent, doesn't matter. Now, Bernie Sanders' words still has some relevance. It's just he wasn't the one to follow through on it. It's us. And I've said on the show that we have to break away from the two-party system. We cannot put faith into one person. I know it's easy for a lot of people to look at somebody to be their end-all, be-all hero. Bernie Sanders is human like the rest of us, flawed. Okay? We are all flawed. But perhaps maybe where he failed, we can succeed. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to play a video here, right? Some of you might get upset. I understand, but it should ignite the passion. Where Bernie Sanders failed, you, all of you, must succeed. Where Bernie Sanders did not push forward, we must push forward. We have to be the ones. We have to be the ones that we're waiting for. We have to be the ones that are unapologetic. We have to be the ones that are set loose in order to fight for that better future. Because if we don't fight back, if we don't step up, we're constantly going to be pushed around. Now, again, many of you may not like this video that I'm going to play. Some of you might get upset about it. But I think it's very apropos because it should inspire you to move forward. And yes, at the end of this video, I'm going to be playing good old Jesse Jett's poem about Bernie, because this is a double-edged sword. I do apologize if this does upset some of you, but I think it should add fuel to your fire. So let's go ahead and push forward and pull this up here. Sorry about that. Sorry, hold on. I just realized that is copyrighted. So hold on. Let me go ahead and move on real quick. That was going to be something else. Hold on. My apologies. My apologies indeed. I just screwed that up. Haha. Picked the wrong video, and now you're watching me live on air trying to rectify my mistake. Hold on. So hold on. Now we're set. See? See, even I make mistakes. Even I make mistakes.
We cannot maintain a president who is a pathological liar.
Now he's making up a story about getting arrested in apartheid South Africa.
This is God's truth. My word is a Biden.
It's weird.
He is a fraud.
At least 31 different lies Biden has told about being an activist in the civil rights movement.
Just flat out lie.
That's disgusting.
Trump said he would provide health care to everybody. He lied.
Joe Biden seemed very much to suggest that if Medicare for All did come to his desk, he would actually veto it.
We cannot maintain a president fostering sexism.
There was 3 corroborating witnesses for Anita Hill, and Joe Biden did not allow them to testify. She never got a direct apology from Biden.
He thinks that he's going to win by dividing us up.
The younger generation now tells me how tough things are. Give me a break. No. I have no empathy for it. Give me a break.
What we need is a new politics which brings young people into our political movement, working class people into our political movement. You cannot beat Trump with the same old kind of politics. We're going to beat Trump because this will become a contrast in ideas. One of us in this race led the opposition to the war in Iraq.
War would be a terrible mistake.
Another voted for the war in Iraq.
Hundreds of thousands now dead.
One of us has spent his entire life fighting against cuts in Social Security. Another candidate calling for cuts.
Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. I'm at every single solitary thing.
We are not going to balance the budget on the backs of the elderly, disabled vets, or the children.
You've got to put all of it on the table.
One of us led the opposition to disastrous trade agreements. Another candidate voted for disastrous trade agreements, which cost us millions of good-paying jobs. The people understand it is our campaign, our movement, which is best to defeat Trump.
Now, that was done by Matt Orfalea. Surprisingly, though, Matt Orfalea was let go from the Bernie Sanders campaign because we had a lot of triggered vote blue, no matter who liberals upset at his YouTube videos. I know. And let's not forget when Bernie Sanders went on Joe Rogan's show. Oh, my goodness. That caused almost a rift. AOC was going to run away. She was so furious. Who would have predicted that in the following 4 years that the Joe Rogan interview that happened with Donald Trump would be another boost, not only for him, but for J.D. Vance. Hindsight's 2020, ain't it? Same Bernie Sanders, who also dismissed Cenk Uygur's endorsement. There's a lot to take away from that. My final thoughts on Bernie. He had his time. No one's perfect. He doesn't get an excuse for his failure for follow through. Not with me. Not with what I saw in Philadelphia. And of course, maybe I should have been smarter, especially during the 2020 election. Maybe I should have just realized if he wasn't going to fight then, he wasn't going to fight at all, period. I respect his words, but the actions of the man caused me to view him with much distrust. But perhaps maybe politics in D.C., even he wasn't expecting the movement, the lightning in the bottle to happen. And will there ever be another movement like that ever? Probably not, with how fractured and divided the Democratic Party is. There's no saving this sick machine, the Democratic Party, that constantly screws people over. This is Bernie's last hurrah, fine. I'll remember him for his failure to lead his army. I'll remember him for his failure for lack of follow-through. And we'll see how he acts during his final term. Maybe this is the one where Bernie Sanders finally gets that roar back. But I'm not holding my breath, and neither should any of you. We must go further. We must push harder, and we must fight harder than Bernie Sanders ever did. He was not who he said he was. We have to be the ones we were waiting for.
If you fool me once, it's because I didn't think a guard was needed. If you fool me twice, it's because I didn't learn the lesson, so it bears repeating. If you try the same play 3 times running, it's because you know what's coming, and you didn't come to lead, you came to purposefully be misleading. Democracy is dry. It's been a century bleeding. The husk is gaping open to the sky, out in the field where all the sheep just keep on circling and worrying and bleeding. They're waiting for the shepherd that they've tried to hide their faith in, but he's so appealing. They'd gladly give their fleece. It's such a freeing feeling that even when he leads them to the ledge and starts to urge them on, they're positively beaming. They were told that they were on their way to save democracy, so even as they plummet, they just gloat. They don't consider screaming. And halfway up the cliff, the shepherd's cozy little mittens wrap around the staff of shattered human hopes on which he's leaning. He shows the gentle grin that used to stir your inner spark, and he says, "Not me, us," as he gestures to the oligarchs. He knows that if he runs, they're going to stop him like a stolen car. And he'll easily surrender because it bought a lot of time for laying mines in all the grassroots. Suddenly, the tiniest of movements gets you blown apart. Suddenly, you're in a play that's set on an election day and voting for the fire, unaware you're playing Joan of Arc. Suddenly, the shepherd pulls the rug and slips a hood across your clueless mug, and everything goes zero dark. I'm gonna warn you once more before it's 2024 and you fuck around and find out who your heroes are. To take a step back from the herd, and you'll learn that you can spot who all the shearers are. If you really want to know the product that they're selling, I can take you where the mirrors are. If you think your voice is finally ready, I can tell you where the lyrics are. I hid them in a box I had to bury neath the cobble when they carpet bombed the promenade and raided all the street bazaars. Now all we've got's the marketplace, and you're too broke to even bother asking what the options for your treatment are. Suddenly, the raw debris of homeless human dignity will find it has 100 teeth for every badge and sweeper's arm. Suddenly, they speak in solidarity and each is armed. Suddenly, the sheep can see the shepherd for his truest form and all pitch in at once to help him buy the farm. And now it's zero dark, and all is calm and peaceful save the distant wail of sirens that approach beside the flames of dawn. Suddenly, the carrot's just a string that's on a stick, and all your movements make you sick because the prize is gone. Now, we could go and flee into the forest low and meek, or we can exercise our right to feast and go and graze on Biden's lawn. Because he's been sowing seeds that seep a toxin out to sap a bit from each of us and keep on leaching decades after Biden's gone. So regardless who they summon out of hell to come and do the job, it will not feel like Biden's gone. But in that time of hopelessness, you cannot trust the shepherd when he once again comes asking you to humor him his siren song. And it's cute that you can innocently, honestly assume that's just a symptom of a system that was wired wrong, and not the standard feature, basic function, primary objective of a mass hypnosis firebomb. You don't need to know the words to cry along. Someday it'll hit you like an officer who pistol whipped their ride along. Broke his jaw and kept his job and kept it moving right along. That voting isn't red or blue or black or white or right or wrong. Voting's like a firing squad where you can choose the firearm. It's slow extinction by and large. It's Super Tuesday supercharged. It's all your futures, roots and all, just tossed out on a garbage barge. It's everybody dropping out to push the biggest oligarch. It's everybody voting fire, registered as Joan of Arc.